Welcome to the Elder Blogs. We're here this week to talk about another movie we mentioned last week, Deliver Us from Evil. We're going to let you know our full thoughts, feelings, and complaints.
In vivid detail.
Yeah.
In glorious vivid detail.
We'll start off as normal with the type and genre of this movie. It was a dark, gritty, cop, mystery, supernatural exorcist movie?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
When it
that.
felt like it.
When it felt like it,
I mean,
definitely
it was,
what happened in that
it
movie.
was the genre jumping whenever it felt like. The consistency was bad. There's a lot we can go at length with the things that we don't like about this movie, but
And we will.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hold consistent to any sort of genre or anything like that.
No, it kind of, it's one of those things that does whatever it wants. Like As Above, So Below, but in the worst way possible. It ends up doing, it goes through the gamut, and it really doesn't know its place. It doesn't know where it wants to be as far as genre goes. It's supposed to be an exorcism movie. That's the whole premise. Deliver Us from Evil, yada, 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 religious tones, blah, 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 blah,
Like
blah.
we mentioned last week, it was a movie that came out alongside, or at least very similar date release to As Above, So Below.
Mhm.
I feel like the marketing for this movie was, a lot more invested. There was a lot more money put out to get the name out, and it did everything wrong. It was not the choice. The other movie was
Oh, my favorite was
far
the
superior.
disclaimer in the beginning where they're like, based on a true story.
Or a collection of true stories that you hand picked out, whatever you felt like.
Or like half a sentence you heard in the office somewhere and then
No,
decided
I read
to make a movie
I read
on it.
online that it was based on a variety of true events, and I feel like that
True.
should have made it better.
Having some semblance in reality definitely should have made that movie better, especially being an Exorcist movie. Like, it should have gotten there, and then it just didn't.
I think this was the weakest Exorcist movie I've seen, period. It got a lot of respect from certain reviews, but I don't understand it. It was flat, weak, inconsistent, borderline incoherent, and
I feel like I had
boring.
beer goggles on when I was watching it.
Yeah,
because
in a
like
way,
nothing
I mean,
made sense.
It was just events all in a line that took up 2 hours of my time, and
We'll get to that.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much the type of genre right there. Scare factor.
You know the scariest part? Dog.
Realizing I lost 2 hours of my life was pretty
Yeah,
horrific.
that was the thing, is the movie was not scary at any point because the imagery wasn't there. It wasn't detailed enough. It wasn't vivid enough. It was just kind of vague, and I think people, when they're making movies now, think they can just get away with being vague and just dealing with it.
Vague isn't even appropriate.
No, it was just the whole thing felt muddy and blurry.
All the details were obscured in like buzzwords, and
Yeah.
it's like, here, let's drag in this mildly attractive like exorcist dude, is gruffy
guess.
looking guy to kind of contrast the clean like cop. And
I think that's was the scariest part of the movie, was the fact that they paid these people money.
no, I
To
don't think
do
the
this
actors
movie.
did this. I don't think the actors did this in injustice. I think the
I-
lines were flat, and Olivia Munn, what was her name?
I think
She could have looked better. No offense. I mean, like, there's no sympathy for these characters, and like that little snippet in the beginning with Iraq, Afghanistan, the little war snip.
who
I
even
mean,
gave a
like,
shit?
no,
It could've just
it's
been
like,
gone.
It's like a found footage event that I thought was trashy, like crappy, like poor excuse for story introduction.
There was just nothing scary. There was no atmosphere. The whole movie was a slightly bluish gray hue,
No,
and
it
for no
kept
particular reason.
falling out of the movie repeatedly to the
Mm.
point where I just wanted it to end. I mean, as
And it
far
wouldn't,
as like
it wouldn't fucking end.
there was that interesting bit in the end that we'll get to that it cried for like a second hope, but it
Mm.
wasn't enough.
No, I think that what made that the end so good was the contrast of fucking 2 fucking hours of my life thrown down the drain watching this shit movie, and here's some semblance of hope, and oh wait, the movie's over. Well, shit.
I can't find enough or any really scary events in the movie. There was an attempt at some jump scares, and if you've ever seen a horror movie before, you saw those coming. So
Yeah.
for and consistent rising tension that wasn't there.
No.
I mean, Darth Maul being on screen all the time, all cut up and with a hood on. I mean, it takes you out of it a lot, especially when there's no life given to that creature, that possession, that person. It was just like, here's the thing, it's scary. You're gonna be scared of it.
He's evil.
He's all cut up. We've done this before in the Connecticut movie.
The Haunting in Connecticut.
Haunting in Connecticut, which
Yeah.
I thought was an alright movie, all things considered. But it's like, you take the body alphabet, the scars out of that movie, and you take like some imagery from Seven and some motifs, and you layer it with just
Bluish gray overtones.
yeah.
That
I mean,
like that. The whole thing was shot through a blue gray filter, and it was pretty awful. The point that what I want to get to, no. What I want to get to is the pacing. This is the
That's-
thing that I want to rip the fuck apart. Holy fuck! Nothing happened for 2 fucking hours. That was 2 hours of my life. Fuck this movie. I hate this fucking movie. Like, that was the only reason. Like, so you start at the beginning. Shit happens in Afghanistan. Yeah, cool. What the fuck ever. Cut to this guy in New York. Okay, cool. How's it going to relate? Oh, they were all buddies in the military. Who cares? Who cares? Why did you take 2 hours to explain that? Why? No, the pacing was awful. There was just a series of events jumbled together, some semblance of consistency, and all of it just fell flat. It was just a series of isolated incidents that, via half a line of dialogue, connected, and you still just didn't give a shit. You just didn't give a shit about anything that was
well,
happening
it's funny
all of it was
because
so
this
fucking
is
boring.
the Sinister director's second movie, wide release, I believe.
Mhm.
And for being such a fan of horror and true events and the history of it all, like, where was that at? I mean, it was phoned in, it was predictable,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't leave you with anything at the end. It was more or less like, maybe I'm going to watch a movie that actually is worth my time now to get that out, the bad taste out of your mouth type of a thing.
Mm-hmm. I just went to bed afterwards. I just couldn't even tolerate existence anymore. I just went to fuck bed.
I watched reviews on YouTube just to see what other people thought about this movie, and I was surprised when I saw some people thought it was the best Exorcist movie since The Exorcist, and I was like, I'm dumbfounded right now because An Exorcism of Emily Rose was great. I thought for
It was
being
really,
like
really
20
good.
years, 15 years since Exorcism movies. I mean, The Last Exorcist wasn't the best thing, but it was much better. I mean, it was found footage, I think, if you've ever seen it.
Maybe.
It was better. I would watch that like for the rest of the week every day over watching Deliver Us from Evil again.
Conjuring is so good.
I thought The Conjuring was okay.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at.
Annabelle, actually, while we're on that topic, I thought Annabelle was a more solid follow-up. There was scenes in that movie that not only actually, like, I screamed out loud in front of my girlfriend in the middle of the day. I mean, maybe I'm a bit.
Just
like-
let that settle in for a second. Just take a moment.
But I thought it was a far superior movie, and the ending was fine, and it was like self-admitted to not necessarily following true events, but it made an homage at the end to true events. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like it was conceived a whole lot better than Deliver Us from Evil.
Again, I just want to point out 2 fucking hours. This movie was 2 fucking hours long. 2 fucking hours. Just I can't say it enough. This was 2 hours of my life down the drain.
I am also very much not talking up movies like The Conjuring, which are formulaic and not as exciting as other movies like Cabin in the Woods, Evil Dead, Dawn of the Dead.
It fucking.
I mean, it was
anything.
just better than the average. But as far as suspension of disbelief, I forgot I was watching a movie a few times to the point where I was off doing other things, and that's not what I sat down to do.
2 hours. It was 2 fucking hours. They wanted me to suspend my disbelief that this hardened fucking cop was like, oh, maybe this guy's right.
And Joel McHale. I mean, I love Joel McHale, but like, he was just so obviously like, hey, I want to make this badass cop do these things and make these jokes, and then when push comes to shove, he gets shanked in a hallway. Like,
I
talk about set up to die much. Like, and he didn't even do it in a cool way, which would have accented his character. He just was involved in a knife fight. Like, I had
Yeah.
to watch this fucking like the Raid knife fight for 2.5 minutes, and then I'm just like back into a horror movie.
Yeah, no,
The antagonist, let's roll right into that because
Yeah.
I mean that killed the movie. The fact that Darth Maul walked around
The entire fucking
the entire
movie.
time just like, hey, look at me, deal with it. Like,
Yeah. Like the whole fucking time, he's just prancing around. Hey, you'll never catch me, coppers. Woo! Like he's in a fucking Scooby Doo movie. Like,
no attempt at like what's scary about that to you? If I saw some guy walking around all cut up and wearing just a hood, just a robe, I'd
You didn't even know he was cut
probably
up at that
call
point,
the
though.
cops or something. Like,
He's
there's
just-
a homeless man walking around the streets. He's confused.
and then like in some of the things he would like challenge people, like visually challenge people, and it's just like I don't care.
You look farther into that than I did. I was just like, oh look, Darth Maul. Like,
Just about every character. The only person that I gave a shit about in this entire movie was the daughter, because I was absolutely heartbroken at one scene when he's just like, "Just shut up," and she was just horrified ran upstairs.
Oh.
I was
That's
heartbroken.
not even fair because then you're bringing in some empathetic side note about cop life, and it's like, where's that been the whole movie? And now I've got
Yeah,
to deal with this
like-
poor girl because you're not dealing with it.
Yeah.
And then we move on, and at what point does that get recognized? At the very end for a second? At all, if at all, like, and that exorcism scene, like, it's like, hey guys, we've got 10 minutes left in the movie. I think we forgot something. A wrap up, a correlation to all the things we just saw. I mean,
No, everybody fell flat. Everybody just, I don't know if they were just poorly written or just were
I
doing
think
it for
so.
just a paycheck.
Joel McHale is not a bad actor, and
No.
neither is the lead cop. And Olivia Munn. I mean, I don't think she's bad at delivering a line. She's been in front of a camera 1,000 times. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't necessarily. I think the actors phoned it in because they didn't give a shit about the script. They needed a paycheck, and so they just didn't care. So
but again, it's the guy from Sinister. I mean, he's supposed to be all about this, raw footage, new, horror, storytelling, and Sinister was atrocious. It's like, let's watch The Undertaker and a bunch of found footage movies. I couldn't take that seriously for an instant. And then we get this. It's like, you know what? M. Night Shyamalan, you guys would probably get along well. Maybe do another movie together.
yeah, no, that'd be beautiful. Just let
He
them
would
do
give
their
you
own thing.
the characters and the story, and then you would not fuck it up.
Yeah,
And then maybe we'd have a good movie.
and also probably not make a cameo in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's I just no, it really was just awful. Like all the characters were completely unsympathetic. You didn't care. I feel like even hardened cops that have been in similar situations as this cop just didn't give a shit.
I
Just wouldn't
did
care.
write down 2 pros.
Yeah.
I thought the actors were, put in unfair roles. And the actual pro is the Doors. I mean, I thought the Doors were
Yeah.
really cool. I like audio effects in horror movies.
It was cool to a point. I thought it was a little ham-fisted, but like
well, the whole movie was ham-fisted. I mean,
I wasn't. I didn't care about the whole Doors symbolism, and because not only that, but when you realize they're directly speaking about literally fucking doors, it doesn't. It feels completely uninspired.
oh, well, when you look at it like that, sure.
Like,
I just kind of took it at face value.
You
I
just
was
like
here's
listen
some
here in the
music.
Doors. You're like, hey,
I like the Doors.
cool.
Like,
Got a nice little break and all the tension. There
yeah,
was no
I mean,
tension.
and I loved in that movie with the shit and the stuff.
How
The
descriptive.
guy. It was that movie that we really liked, and they did a bad hoods off halfway through it, which took away from it, but it was still a decent movie. That second movie, Insidious. Insidious, when they do that audio track loop. And when movies do that, I know I don't want it to get watered down or reused in every movie that ever happens again, but
Mhm.
that usually only adds for me.
The only time that you hear any manipulation of audio whatsoever in any horror movies in ever is just when something scary is about to happen and it happened. Like
Yeah, but there's
that's
no
it.
subtlety to movies like Sinister,
Hmm.
and subtlety is what does horror justice.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you don't also just don't want to give away that you're about. I'm gonna scare you. I'm gonna scare you. Oh shit! Look, I tried to scare you, and like you totally preps your audience for it. But it done right, it could build the tension, and the watcher doesn't even know that the tension's building. They're just unsettled for some reason.
That's what made As Above, So Below so watchable, and this is really our first contrast. As Above, So Below, Deliver Us from Evil. As Above, So Below was very watchable in the sense that maybe some of the filming quality was a little, less adequate. Maybe some of the line delivery was a little like quick and whatever. But the tension, the story, the characters being what they were, just added a lot more to watching the film. I mean, I could go home and watch As Above, So Below again tonight. That'd be 3 or 4 times. No big deal. Never gonna watch that again. Not.
No, I
That's
wouldn't
that's my judgment on it.
Wouldn't waste my time. Wouldn't waste my time ever again. You couldn't pay me enough to watch that stupid.
You could pay me, but $20 wouldn't get there.
No, $20 would not get there. There had to be some serious,
Skrilla.
serious
Yeah.
jobbing going on too.
I mean, we hit it like pacing, suspension, antagonist, the wrap up. I mean, I
All right,
guess
let's
we'll
talk about
officially
the
hit the
wrap-
wrap up.
We'll hit the wrap up. This is kind of where spoilers come in because we have to discuss the end of the movie. So
Yeah, we
if
haven't
you haven't
really-
watched it yet, go take a break, go watch the movie. If you have watched it, just keep watching. Doesn't matter. Or if
It
you,
really
if you don't
doesn't
want to
matter,
see
I
the
mean-
if you don't even want to see the movie, just we'll tell you now at length. Okay, so at the end, the exorcism happens. This whole movie's about following around this guy who's trapped in a demon. Who cares? Because they did an awful job of making me give a shit about this guy at all. We found some dead bodies. Cool. I'm watching a horror movie. Gonna see at least one. Some screaming at me.
That found footage build up in the beginning was just god awful.
It was pointless because it didn't even tell you anything. They're like, "Oh, we're in Iraq. Oh man, making it nice and poignant, make it nice and current. We're in Iraq. You go into some tombs. Oh shit happened. There's no even explanation for what that was. They just went in some random hole in the fucking ground and decided that that's where the demon came from.
Just some Egyptian tomb.
It wasn't even Egyptian. It was just
No, it was just the
it was
thing.
just a hole in the
Why
ground.
did I say Egypt, Afghanistan? That's pretty dumb right there. But
No, but it was obviously some sort of tomb, but it wasn't like.
there was just nothing,
It was
and
just-
you
there was
didn't
no-
get anything else. I mean,
No.
to my recollection, there was nothing to build the mythos, and that's a good point that I do kind of want to make. If you're not building a mythos in a horror movie, you're not doing anything.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Then it's going to end up coming off like a slasher film or something like that.
You have to build something. There has to be something there. You have to set up rules and foundations so that way
That's what allows movies to end off open-ended and allow for sequels and not have sequels, is that open-ended mythos that got built and an event that got portrayed accurately and scarily.
But as far as the ending goes, what ends up happening at the end is exorcism happens. Okay. Let me tell you right off the bat that if this movie was slimmed down to just the ending, put on YouTube, they would have made tons of YouTube money. They would have made thousands and trillions of YouTube bucks because the ending was
They'd have
actually
got a solid million in like
Easy.
no big deal.
easy.
I
Because
mean-
the ending of this movie was the best part. Was it worth the 2-hour fucking wait?
Not
Absolutely
in
not,
the
under no
least.
circumstances. Just skip to the end where they get the guy, and then he ends up being like, we don't give a shit about him. He does one creepy, like, I'm a demon thing, and then it's kind of even worse because the priest that's there breaks it down into steps.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I've done this before. Don't worry. Hold on. Why was the cop even in the fucking room other than the resolution of that?
Because they were
Like-
ham-handedly trying to imply that this exorcist and this cop are probably gonna team up and like go Ghostbust or something. But like they didn't come out and say it. They didn't imply that to a point where I would understand it without like trying to analyze this piece of crap movie. And at the end of the movie, even the priest who's done this before, who's your only sole light in the movie as like guidance and trust, breaks down at the demon. Like it was just so unbelievable, the whole thing. It was just like that wouldn't really happen. I mean, like
Yeah.
you're supposed to know what you're doing here. Is it's the first time demons come back at you with like some
No, there's a
some shit.
specific phase that they say ends up being like, all right, he's going to attack you. He's going to know your darkest secrets. And then the priest is just like, dear, how did he know? It's like, of course he fucking knew. You have a whole step in your little process to say that he knows this stuff. You warned the
look,
cop about that.
Look, this dude went out, saw a few Exorcist movies, wrote some shit down, and said, we're going to do this. Didn't take anything, didn't move or act on it, didn't build on it.
I don't believe that he knew what he was doing. I don't believe
I'm sure he knew what he wanted to do.
Because not only that, if you really, really want to look deep into it. So, he mentions this other exorcism that happens. And he's like, okay, well, we beat the demon, what the fuck ever, who cares? He goes back and says, but I also relapsed with this girl. She also had a kid because we had... And it's like, did you actually exorcise that demon? because that was actually
It
a
also
pretty good
feels
point
like
of
some
like
information that would have been useful in the first 20 minutes. Like, I mean, instead we're hearing about this in the last
30 seconds of the
last,
fucking movie.
arc of the movie, and I don't care anymore.
No, I've lost all interest. But that's the thing is like he went back and exercised this demon, and I think this is kind of clever, but I really don't think that they thought this hard about it. But you could say that the demon got to the priest is the reason why he relapsed in drugs and had a kid with this bitch. Like
The movie wasn't conceived.
it
In
wasn't.
the slightest. They didn't know what they were doing. And that's
I think that was just a happy accident.
that's
that
my
made sense.
first suggestion to anybody that even thinks they're going to do a horror movie, unless they're doing it for the paycheck. Conceive the idea fully, build a mythos in your mind, and then direct that film. Otherwise, it's just going to be the same crap. You're going to have a haunted house that people had just bought, moved in with their dumb fucking kids. You know, some shit's going to happen for 45 minutes. You're going to try and cram a resolution into something that never fit in the first place.
Build up a whole fucking world, detail out absolutely everything, and then trim it down for the movie. Like, write a fucking book first. You know what? Just write a book, flesh
No,
out
but
all
you're
your
right.
characters.
It's like
and just cut
running
it down.
a D&D game. If you don't know what world your characters are in, they're not anywhere. They're just doing stuff because
It's just a series of
Events.
occurrences
Yeah.
that happens. There's nothing to
I mean,
commit
do a
anyone anywhere.
VHS style movie. I mean, that
worked.
That entertains the shit out of me. Give me a loose story with some short stories in between. Sold. Good.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Or Crypt Keeper movies or anything like that along that lines. You know, short stories packed into one movie. I've always done it for me. The Trick or Treat film, but you know, to go 2 hours at length to deliver something like this as your second film, it's not good. It's not good with me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sit well because it was 2 hours of my wasted time. If I know that you can't do this, but it'd be one of those things where I'd go back and demand my fucking money for this movie if I saw it in theaters. I would have been so upset about
I almost
that.
did see it in theaters.
I would have been so upset. I can't get over the fact that movie was 2 fucking hours long and nothing happened in it. The only parts that I really gave a shit to remember were when he yelled at the little girl because I felt really bad because she was super cute, and the ending because it was actually kind of cool. But I'm not sure if I actually just liked the ending or if I liked it because the movie was final fucking over.
I think it was a combination of this is the first interesting thing that's happened in a supernatural movie in an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Or it's the fact that we're finally getting done with it. I mean, even him counting down the steps got played out.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, get to the last step. Let's wrap this up. I haven't seen wings, fire, or blood spray
Or
yet, so
anything.
I'm kind of done.
Yeah. And there was also a part in the middle where he finally connects the dots, like an hour in, like who all these people are that are getting murdered and like going crazy and all that shit. The wife, I don't even understand. The wife of the one soldier that went crazy and threw herself off a fucking building.
Like, why?
Why? Who cares?
Be-
And then he
Because
targets this cop
things.
too.
because things. We've
He targeted the cop, the main character in the demon targeted the main character in this movie for no particular reason. Maybe because he had a gift, but I'm not even really sure I was convinced that he had a gift. They might have tried to play that subtly, and they just totally undershot it. Like the cop, they mentioned his radar and shit like that. No, these are just events. These are just events that happen that, flip a coin and something might have happened, and guess what? It happened. Like
I can summarize this whole bit with I've seen a lot more Shyamalan movies start to finish that I agree with more. Most of them, except for The Village. I thought that Village was the worst,
The Village was pretty bad.
the absolute worst. But
That was also fucking way longer than it needed to be.
way longer than it needed to be and way over advertised. I remember
Yeah.
being so pumped, and then like 45 minutes through that trash film, I'm like, oh, I guess they're living in a old civilization quartered off from society, and then it happened. And then I was like, this is so shitty.
And my favorite part is when you get to that realization in that movie, fucking, you don't even get a straight shot at M. Night Shyamalan. Like, it's like he didn't even want to be in the movie. He was like in a reflection talking to his subordinate, like yelling at his subordinate. And it's like, really? Really?
I'm telling you, we should just only ever make horror movies entitled The Cube, and then I'll be happy.
Yeah, that would be an awesome TV show. I would watch that
The
TV show
Cube?
for
For years.
for years. Just have every season be a killer. And because that's where the Cube fell short. And we're totally digressing, and I understand that. That's where the Cube fell short, was that it had a lot of idea and flavor,
Oh,
but they tried to
tons.
trim it for time. So like nothing really got as fleshed out as it could have been. And I think if they actually spend the time,
See, that's where I love the open-endedness of The Cube and movies like that, where they give you enough framework to set up a devious machination in your mind,
Mhm.
and they don't dirty the water with like, well, here's my idea. It's actually a clown with like, you know, I don't need the clown. I don't need the guy behind the computer or the face behind the corporation. Or
No, it was too fast. I feel it didn't have time to really flesh
it was
anything
one of
out.
those movies that I just wanted more.
Oh, this one was for free, by the way. Our review of The Cube.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go watch The Cube. I mean, all three of them were like fine. I
We
mean,
could just talk about other horror. Like we got a couple minutes to fill up. We can also just talk about better horror
Yeah, how much
movies.
time? What are we at? The director.
You're at 8 minutes.
8 minutes left.
3:30.
All right. I mean, yeah.
No, I think we should flesh out a little bit more on the
like-
specific awfuls of
I
this
don't
movie.
like talking about this movie anymore. It's just so bad.
We really shouldn't give it as much time as we've
No,
given
and I
it so
also don't
far.
want to trash talk this guy. If it's the second movie, a second, attempt.
Like, okay, we'll go back and we'll say we appreciate the effort, but as
I
from
don't know
a
if I'd go that far. Try again. You're
Well-
you're on the right track.
maybe no, this was just did somebody pay him to make this movie? Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
how I feel. Like somebody had to be like, just make this movie for me, and he's just like, I don't give a fuck.
Did it
Sure,
make, did it
here you
make
go.
money?
I don't know if it made money.
Fact check that real quick. I mean, I couldn't be satisfied if it made more than As Above, So Below. But that's also the problem with the market right now. I mean, people are paying for movies that I don't think really deserve it. You know, a movie that's like only a fraction of a step above an Uwe Boll film. Like, I'm not kidding. I mean, do you think
No.
it's much better than
No.
like a House of the Dead?
I might have been more entertained by
Flagrant-
those movies.
Disobedience to the horror formula?
Like that was the thing, is that I could have been like, okay, obviously he didn't take this seriously. Let's get a couple laughs in and we're good to go. And usually they're not that long in general. This was two.
Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
That was-
hilarious.
So it
Yeah.
did make money,
Beautiful.
but not in America.
Okay.
It broke even in America, and
Breaking even in America, I could live
it
with
had
that.
a $30 million budget. It made totally domestically 31.5. Foreign though, it made 57 million
On top of
on top of that. So it pretty much made $57 million.
Jesus, that is not worth $1 million, let
No.
alone 50 of them.
I don't know. I hear these budgets about these movies, and I just don't. I can't grasp the concept
Well,
of
I mean,
how they're
y-
spending so much money on these movies.
Tons of things. I mean, like location permits. The equipment that they rent, the actors, the people that are in charge of little things like wardrobe and makeup. Not
Getting me a
not
coffee?
belittling
Did
the
you
people that
spend-
do these things in the film industry, but like when you total it all up, there's like 1,000 things you're gonna probably need to pay for.
I feel like most of it was spent on getting somebody coffee. Because that's the thing, is like when you have a budget, it shows in the movie somewhere.
Does the budget include like the money paid to the director, the screenwriters, or all that? It does.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So-
but it includes everyone's pay.
Everybody, the total expenditure of the film.
Before they even consider the money spent on props, locations,
Mhm.
effects, whether they're practical or CG.
Yeah, I mean the actors all probably got paid
The
a
budget
pretty
went to
amount.
Darth Maul.
It had to have. That was the only
But
thing that
that's
could have gone
what
to.
disappoints me about the entire film is that deployment of an antagonist, as we're gonna eventually cement in everybody's mind. I wouldn't have the guy hoods off, or obviously in front of the camera displaying what he is so early in the movie for so very long. I mean, and to put that much money into it.
You're absolutely correct, because let me tell you, if I thought that was just like a dude run around doing all this shit in the movie, that would have been a little bit more interesting
A
than
little, yeah.
having as the first scene. Oh, he's a demon. Okay, cool.
What's that one older film where I think it's a black detective, and there's like a demon that switches bodies, falling down. This movie just felt like a lot of other films that it wasn't even close. It wasn't Seven. It wasn't. I think it's called Fallen. It wasn't Saw. It wasn't. Even The Conjuring. I mean, and that's again like a mid-range for me as far as supernatural horror goes.
Here's the point that I didn't understand. So we get into the whole portal thing. Literally, they play the doors because it's literally opening gate. I didn't understand the whole concept,
They
because
open a gate in Iraq and let a demon out and infects him like a virus, and then
Okay.
shit happens.
okay, so we'll not gloss over the shit happens part. He's at the zoo painting over the specific Latin and whatever language that opens more portals to let out more demons.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
covering them up.
Right. Because
Why would
because he, I don't.
Why would a demon want less demons in the real world?
Well, because I think they're trying to imply that he did what he needed to do at that doorway, but it doesn't. Make
But he didn't do anything.
But it doesn't make any sense. Like
there's no other
If he
demons.
came through the door already, and then he goes and opens another door, and then shuts the door, but nothing comes through. I mean, we're not dealing with multiple, antagonists. We're dealing with just the one possession. So the fact that he's running around trying to unlock doors, you're right. Unless he's trying to get home. But then the whole point of this movie is just so far and beyond me.
And then so they're trying to go home. Okay, cool. Let him exercise you, because as far as I'm concerned, an exorcism just sends a demon back to hell. As far as I'm concerned, it
I
can
think we're
destroy them
looking
sometimes.
A little too deeply into this.
I-
I don't think there was a point for the paintings.
But the fact is that as above, so below, I could have railed like this movie, and I didn't because I enjoyed it. It was a pleasurable experience. I enjoyed things that it did. I
I
enjoyed
could have
things that it
railed
did.
a whole lot about it.
I
I mean, as above, so below. I mean, yeah, there's.
I
bits-
could get nitpicky.
Oh yeah.
I could tear this movie apart.
I was talking to a buddy last night who was a little nitpicky, and as I mentioned in the video before, with the whole camera angles and lights on the heads, like he was kind of losing it, and he lost it a little bit at some of the shaky camera and stuff like that. Now that's completely preferential,
Mhm.
and that's going to be, to each is their own kind of a situation, but it didn't hurt it for me. I mean, I thought it was absolutely fine, and I thought it was so much more conceived, like you're saying, than Deliver Us from Evil, which maybe that's all it takes.
Anything. It could have been entertaining remotely. That's the issue that I had with this movie is it wasn't entertaining at any point. It was just a bunch of dry spells leading up to a ramped up climax that was just accented, I guess, by how the drivel that was the first part of this movie up until that point, because it was just boring and flat. And even, like I said, it's also important, they put a blue-gray filter over the whole movie, is what it looks like, and that doesn't help build tension.
It doesn't help in any respect. Like
Because blue is literally a calming color. Why would you want that in a
I've
movie
been
that
going
needs high
on
tension?
for like days now about Walk Among the Tombstones, and the camera work in that movie is just, I think, great. I mean, like they make scenes pop that are normally scenes that you might cringe at. I mean, like the scene, you haven't seen it yet?
No, not yet.
The scene when, he sees the little girl in the red coat walking in front of the rape van, or the white creepy guy van. That's such a nice scene. It's so pretty, but it's so ominous.
disturbing
It's
at the
so
same time.
very disturbing. And you got none of that in a horror movie, but you got all of that in this sweet detective movie. I mean, there's just, the equation isn't working for me.
Yeah. I think just to wrap it up, this movie was generally trash. I would avoid it if you could. If you want to, if you have some big elaborate dinner you want to make, you can put it on as background noise, I guess. But there are much better things to put on as background noise.
I mean, as far as my wrap-up goes, it's like I want to see more horror movies. I'm not trying to, completely discredit this director, but he's going to need to put in some work to change my mind about the last two entries.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't want to disrespect him necessarily, but this was not a movie that you want to be a movie that you're making money off of. Like, it didn't do a credit to horror. It didn't do a credit to his name. It didn't do a credit to anything. It was just, overall, it was just bad, and it was boring, and it was flat, and it was uninspired, and it was jumbled, and it was just not scary. It wasn't even unsettling for the most part. You get one neck extension. That's all you think you can put in a movie, and you're good to go.
Yeah, no,
Like-
I mean, for being supernatural, there was really nothing to it.
No, it was just a bunch of fucking bodies.
Bit his leg.
I don't even care.
Who cares?
As
Who cares?
But,
Who cares if he bit his fucking leg?
for next week, our review's still kind of up in the air. Considerations are Dale and Tucker versus Evil, or Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Dale and Tucker versus Evil. This week's gonna be kind of rough for us because we have a con that we're going to, MagFest.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be like our whole weekend. We may film at MagFest. We may just continue on next week and something we've seen or something I'll have to go out and see at some point.
Yeah, but don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and we'll follow you on the comment section.
Absolutely.